All right, so we now gone live with the recording. We'll just wait a few seconds just so we can, most of the attendees can log in. Just wait about 20 or 30 seconds before we get started. All right, so it looks like most of the attendees have logged in. There might be a few more, but I think we can get started with the meeting at this point. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's neighborhood meeting. My name is Andrew Gamero, and I'm a planner with the city's Development Services Department. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to present to you, the neighborhood, a development concept being considered by the owner and the development team of 103 and 107 Napier Street and 95 Cook Street prior to a formal development application being submitted to the city. This provides an opportunity for the development team to hear initial community feedback and incorporate it into their plans prior to making a full and formal development application to the city. I just wanted to note, please be aware we are recording this meeting for the public record. The recording will be used for the purpose of garnering your input and to respond to inquiries and will be considered public information. Please also be aware that as a registered attendee tonight, your mailing or email address will also be added to the mailing list for this file if and when an application is submitted so that you can receive further information about this application as it progresses. And finally, should you have any questions regarding the collection of any information this evening, please feel free to contact the Development Services Department after tonight's meeting. I'd also like to let everyone know that we do have staff behind the scenes managing the technology for us tonight. They're here just to make sure the meeting runs smoothly, to grant participants an opportunity to speak, and also to assist with any questions that might come up in the chat. If we do run into any technical difficulties, we do ask that you please bear with us. We'll do our best just to get things back up and running. And if for any reason, if someone does get disconnected, please feel free to log back in. And if you're unable to do so and you do have any questions or comments, please feel free to connect with me after the meeting, and we'll make sure that you receive a response to any of your questions or comments. All right, so the intent of tonight's meeting is to provide members of the public with an opportunity to become familiar with the future development application, as well as the planning review process, and also ask the applicant questions and provide some feedback. So what you can expect at tonight's meeting is one, a presentation from the applicant's representative describing the proposal, a brief overview of the city's review process and timing, and also an opportunity to ask questions of either the applicant or city staff, and an opportunity just to provide comments or identify any concerns that you may have with the development proposal. What we won't be doing this evening is city staff will not be providing a recommendation on the proposal, nor will we be providing a detailed analysis of the proposal. So we won't be reviewing it against the official plan policies or provincial policies that would occur later on in the process if and when a formal application is submitted to the city and a staff report's brought forward to City Council. And finally, we also won't be debating the merits of the proposal, whether that be between city staff and the applicant or residents in the applicant or city staff. What we're looking for is just general comments, feedback, and questions so that the applicant can address those before bringing an application forward to the city. So before we get into the presentation, what I wanted to do is just quickly highlight the next steps in the application process, just so everybody knows what to expect after this evening's meeting. So this neighborhood meeting is established early in the development process to ensure that local concerns are incorporated and addressed through the city's review if and when an application is submitted. And after this meeting, we do expect that the applicant will likely make a formal application to the city. And formal submissions undergo a full technical review and must address comments received from the neighborhood meeting, from the city's technical departments and external agencies, and from members of the public more broadly. And in conjunction with this, statutory public meeting will also be held virtually if and when an application is submitted, and that would occur at Planning Committee, and Planning Committee is made up of council. And at that public meeting, the applicant's representative would present the application to council, answer questions, and provide an overview and a response to any of the issues or concerns identified during tonight's neighborhood meeting. And as part of the public meeting, members of the public would again have an opportunity to provide verbal or written comments with respect to the proposal. And following the future public meeting, staff would continue the technical review process associated with the application, and the applicant would make any necessary revisions to the development proposal in response to those comments. And once the review process concludes, a staff recommendation report would be brought forward to council for their consideration of the proposal. And all comments received through the review process, including those received at tonight's neighborhood meeting and the future public meeting, would be identified and addressed in the staff report and form part of staff's recommendation on the application. And if this application is submitted, I anticipate that a staff report probably wouldn't be brought forward to council until sometime in 2023. So on that note, I guess we'll now move on to the applicant's presentation. As I mentioned, the proposed project in application will be presented first, which we will follow with a question and comment period. So as I mentioned, tonight we are focusing on a future zoning bylaw amendment application proposed at 103 and 107 Napier Street and 95 Cook Street. The applicant's representative or planner is Cameron Sellers from Innovative Planning Solutions. And just at a high level, I mean, Cameron will go through it more specifically, but the proposal is for a zoning bylaw amendment application to rezone the lands from single residential or R2 and institutional to a single residential, multi-residential RM2, and institutional zones with site-specific provisions, and those provisions would be tailored to the specific design for the site. And the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to permit the future development of 33 block townhouse units, which I believe is actually 35. I think there might have just been a typo on the concept plan, while retaining 2 existing single detached dwelling units on Napier Street and the existing church building on Cook Street. So on that note, I will now hand the meeting controls over to Mr. Sellers, who will first introduce himself and his team, and then share his presentation on the proposed development. Go ahead, Cameron. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Andrew. I will share my screen. Can everybody see that? I'll assume so. Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for attending this neighborhood meeting. My name is Cameron Sellers. I'm a planner with Innovative Planning Solutions, here on behalf of the owners of the lands at 103 and 107 Napier Street, as well as 95 Cook Street. The information that we'll present to you tonight has not been submitted formally to the city for any reason other than pre-consultation. The project details that I'll share with you tonight are very preliminary in nature and are subject to change. The purpose of this meeting is to provide these project details to you and obtain feedback from you to be considered along with comments received from city staff in order to move this project forward. So following this meeting, we'll be proceeding with the required technical studies and moving forward with formal planning applications. This slide provides a brief overview of the consulting team engaged to work on various aspects of this proposed development. So Innovative Planning Solutions are the planners on this project. Cambium has been engaged to complete the geotechnical and hydrogeological studies, while traffic analysis will be completed by JD Engineering. Civil engineering will be completed by WMI, while Landmark Environmental will take care of the arborist and landscape analysis. Finally, Rudy Mac Surveying will complete any required survey work. Each of these consultants will provide critical feedback and input to the project as it moves forward. So in terms of the subject site, I've highlighted it here, outlined in yellow. The site is located south of Napier Street with approximately 61 meters of frontage and east of Cook Street with 61 meters of frontage on Cook Street and a combined roughly 34 meters of frontage on Napier Street. The site slopes in a north to south direction, covering a total area of approximately 1.13 hectares or 2.8 acres. There's 2 existing residential dwellings positioned along the Napier Street frontage, along with 1 former church along the Cook Street frontage. Generally speaking, the lands are significantly underutilized. Relating to site context, I've highlighted the subject property here in red. The slide displays an aerial view showing the subject property along with surrounding characteristics found within a 500-meter radius and beyond. The subject lands are ideally positioned nearby to several elementary schools, including Steele Street Public School, Codrington Public School, and St. Monica's Catholic School. Several parks can be found nearby, including Strabane Park and Steele Street Park, along with various open space amenities, including Nelson Lookout and the North Shore Trail. A local commercial plaza is positioned nearby on Napier Street, while extensive commercial amenities can be found along the Blake Street corridor. In terms of public transit, routes 100A and 100B run along Napier Street, with a transit stop only steps away from the subject site. This slide illustrates the current official plan designation of the subject lands on the left image. The lands are designated institutional and residential within the official plan and are in close proximity to institutional, educational, commercial, residential, and open space lands. This slide also illustrates the current zoning of the subject lands on the right image. The lands are zoned institutional exception 149 and residential 2 within the city zoning bylaw. So this brings us to the details of the proposal as shown here. The development includes a total of 35 new residential townhomes, retention of the 2 existing dwellings on Napier Street, and retention of most of the institutional building on Cook Street. Access to the development will be by way of an internal private road connected to Cook Street, leading to an internal network as shown here. An internal sidewalk network is present along one side of the private road throughout the development. All proposed townhomes will front this private road and will have widths of 6.0 meters or 20 feet each. Each townhome will possess a full driveway and garage, along with individual backyard amenity space. A further consolidated amenity space is also provided as well. A total of 74 parking spaces are provided for the townhome portion of the development, including driveways, garages, and 8 visitor parking spaces. The 2 existing and long-standing dwellings on Napier Street are proposed to be retained post-development, each on generous property sizes of approximately 520 square meters. With respect to the institutional building, the main or south portion will remain intact, while a portion of the north wing addition will be demolished. It is anticipated that the building will house an institutional or community use in the future, such as a private school, childcare facility, or place of worship as examples. This slide provides several architectural styling samples that could be pursued through this development. It should be noted that no floor plans or elevations have been created at this point in the process. The owners are committed to working with city staff to achieve a very high level of urban design and architecture for these new homes. So in order to accommodate the proposed development, an official plan amendment is necessary, redesignating a portion of the property from institutional to residential. And an accompanying zoning bylaw amendment is also necessary, rezoning the property to RM2 zone with special provisions, R2 zone with special provisions, and the institutional zone with special provisions as well. In relation to required studies, the city's identified a host of technical reports required in order to support the proposed development shown here. Each of these studies will be undertaken as the process moves forward to formal official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications. So in summary, this development represents an appropriate level of growth and light intensification on lands that are underutilized within the city's built-up area. This development efficiently utilizes land and municipal infrastructure while providing a reasonable transit supportive density. This development also preserves an existing institutional building, integrating it with the development itself and the surrounding neighborhood, while providing for future community uses within. The proposal introduces much needed new housing options and opportunities to this area, while also respecting and integrating with the surrounding neighborhood. So in advance of tonight's meeting, we did receive several pieces of correspondence from members of the public. We have grouped some of these inquiries together and provided brief responses to them here. So the first inquiry that we received was whether there will be new single-family dwellings constructed at the 103 and 107 Napier Street properties. And the answer to that is no, the existing houses, the existing dwellings will remain. A question was asked whether a new road connection will be provided through to Napier. So the answer is no, this is not proposed. in favor of retaining the existing dwellings. There's a question about sufficient access for emergency service vehicles. So all access and turning radiuses must be designed and to standards required by emergency service providers. And those emergency service providers will be circulated and comment on this development. There was a question about what tenure is proposed for the townhomes. So these townhomes will be condominium and not purpose-built rental. There's a question about whether a traffic study has been completed and whether a new traffic light would be implemented. So there will be a traffic study that's been required by city staff to accompany our applications. That will be completed by JD Engineering and submitted along with our applications that will provide recommendations based on their analysis. There was a question about location of mailboxes and hydrants. So internal hydrants and community mailboxes would be located on the private condominium road internal to the development. There was a question about proposed use of the former church. So there is the future use is not known right now, but it will be a future community or institutional use. For example, a private school, childcare, a church, or something of that nature. And lastly, there was a question about fencing or barriers between the new properties and the existing surrounding properties. So the city does require a 2 meter or 6 foot tall privacy fence constructed around the perimeter of the site. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation and I'll be happy to take any feedback or questions that you may have at this time. Thank you.